Keith here again after a little while. We've been away on holiday to the Dalmatian coast down through Montenegro and Croatia. Had a great time. On the way there and back, because we were flying from Gatwick, on the way there and back we called into the Royal Horticultural Society Gardens at Wisley. As Ruth, my wife, is a member, we can get in for nothing. They've got some nice cafes and things, and they've got a garden centre that often has a few more unusual orchids over and above the normal phals and dendrobiums, which they also have. And the prices, generally speaking, aren't too bad. Now, on the way down, I saw they got 4 or 5 Psychopsis mariposa. Now, that is the label that it came with. They had flowers on, and I thought, oh, but they were a lot of money. They were £35. Most of the others was sort of the usual 15 to 20. So I thought very long and hard about what to do. And while we were away, all the hotels had free Wi-Fi, so I spent quite a lot of time looking on YouTube and everywhere else to try and see whether I could find some conditions in the house where I could keep this. And I think, if I'm reading it right, it will want conditions similar to Phalaenopsis and also my Psychopsis, although it needs to be a bit warmer than a Psychopsis can take. When we came back, we nipped in again for a coffee and a bun, and they'd moved them, or I thought they'd all been sold. And I was going to buy myself a Miltoniopsis, something a bit more tricky to try and have a go at. And they got one of these left. Now the flower fell off as I picked it up, but it doesn't really matter on these because they're a sequential bloomer. And I don't know how well you'll see it, but on the tip of the spike there's a bud, and that was right behind the flower, and apparently that's typical of how they grow, and in a couple of weeks' time we should have another flower. Now the thing that actually made me go for it is the fact that you've got a new growth on that side and another new growth on this side here. So this is a plant that is actively growing and flowering, which is typical of the Psychopsis. From what I've read, one of the best things you can do with these, and I think it was Miss Orchid or Danny who said this, is you alternate the feed, because you've got flowers and you've got growth. If you only give it the low nitrogen, you're not going to develop particularly good growth. If you only give it high nitrogen feeds, the flowers aren't going to do as well. I think that's some brown wine, as Roger might call it. Oh yeah, as you can probably tell, I've caught a cold. One of the ladies on the bus on the tour had bronchitis, and I think I've picked up a bit of that. So I want to have a look at this because although the medium doesn't smell bad, to me this looks a bit low in the pot. I mean, you've got a leaf here where the pseudobulb's completely buried, another one there where the pseudobulb's completely buried. So I need to have a look what's inside. But the clincher was where that little growth, whatever it was there, I saw a very small round snail. So I bought myself some 3% hydrogen peroxide from the chemist and a little spray bottle which I bought from Boots the chemist, and this is going to be the first one that I've ever had to spray. I've never seen snails on anything before. Now, I did slightly ease this thing out of its pot a couple of days ago, and we do have some roots. So I'm hoping, here we go, oh yeah. Now, I watered this the other day, and I know these like to be moist, but this is wringing wet. This is not good. So it's definitely a case that it needs doing. Now, we've got roots, and we've got roots with growing tips. So I've done really well, because the great majority of these roots, even the brownie ones, feel quite firm that I can see on the outside. But this is not great, and it's all fibrous and oh dear. I thought there was some bark in it. There is, but there ain't very much. So this, oh dear, now you can smell the mushrooms. Dear me. Oh, this smells horrible. Now I've disturbed it. I'm really, really glad that I've had a go at it. But I mean, the roots on this are absolutely amazing. I'm just keeping my fingers very firmly crossed that it's not going to be as some books say that they don't like to be disturbed. Well, I'm afraid if it's got snails in it, or come what may, it's going to have to be seen to, because it's no good at all to leave snails in the pot. I don't think it's particularly genius territory to see that. And with this stuff, it's obviously going to take much too long to dry in my conditions. So I'm going to do as a lot of other people seem to do. I haven't prepared anything yet, so it'll be have to be a break. But it's going to have to be a break anyway while I finish fertling all this stuff out of the roots out of this stuff, whichever way around you like. And I think everybody's seen fairly well what cleaning roots up is all about, so I'm going to turn the camera off, finish doing this, and I'll come back when I'm getting ready to repot it. See you later. Right, just a kind of intermediate look. I've got most of the stuff off the roots. Normally I would have put this under the tap and cleaned it up, but I'm well aware that some people think that's a bad idea if you're going to use hydrogen peroxide, because it can offset the effects of it. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I'm going to assume that people who've used it before know what they're talking about, which may or may not be a good thing. But the roots really are very good, surprisingly good. There are some dead ones, of course there are, right underneath the oldest part of the plant. But to be honest, there aren't that many, and a lot of these that are there, and there's evidence of snail attack on one or two of these, but nevertheless we've got some growing tips. It does branch, so I've really got the chance to get some something happening with this, I think. So the next thing I'm going to do is to decant some of this stuff into my spray bottle. Give it a whiz and we'll see what happens. I'd say so far there's no real sign of any fizzing. I've done what I can to get rid of as many of the little sheaths that seem to be around the pseudobulbs, which are very, very tightly crammed together. So I'm going to give this a really good seeing to. Really spray it hard, and then I'll give it a few minutes to work. I think I've got it pretty wet. So that's 3% hydrogen peroxide, my first spray, and oh, it's fizzing. I can hear fizzing. Now where? Now that's interesting, that's coming from up around the pseudobulbs. So it is finding something to have a go at. The leaves are good. Squirt. Since this is H2O2, and when it decays it goes to H2O and to H2O and O2. Do you spray it until nothing happens? I doubt very much if the mics are going to pick that up, but I can hear that fizzing. And looking at it, it's all pretty pretty much been seen to, I think. There's definitely signs of physical damage on some of the older leaves. So whether somebody's had a go at it with something previously, I'm not sure. But that's giving it a good look at. So I'll leave that until it stops fizzing, and then I'll go and rinse it under the tap, and we'll go and have a go at repotting it and cleaning the roots up and then repotting it. Okay, back again. I've sprayed this, as you saw, with hydrogen peroxide, 3%, which I got from the chemist. I had to order it, but it came the same day. There is some signs of insect damage or something like that on the back of a couple of these leaves, but they're older leaves, they're not recent ones. There's no real sign on recent ones, so I'm hoping that with what I've done today and with anything what other people hopefully will have done before it got to me, I can get away with it. Now, what I have found is one or two roots where the tips have gone and obviously been chewed away by snails, but that's not very good. I missed that one. Damage the spine, Keithy. But we have got some roots where the tips are regenerating, and also there are some branches, so there's a good chance of recovery. Now I'm going to pot it up because I just don't think getting it back into a 12 centimetre pot, I'm going to end up with masses of air holes. I found all the dead roots were off exactly where you'd expect, off the oldest part of the plant. So I've trimmed most of those away. That does actually give me a way underneath the plant when I want to try and pack it with medium. Now I'm going to do something that I don't normally do for this one, and I'm going to mix roughly 50-50 some Burnham's medium bark and sphagnum moss. Normally I tend to layer it more than this, and this is going to be pretty much intimately mixed, but I don't think the way the roots are and the fact that it was in a very, it was almost like a soil. If you said it was a universal potting compost, I wouldn't actually have been surprised. So I'm going to try and pack this in down this side first, because if that's the oldest part of the plant, then it needs to be pushed over that way. So I now need to get stuff down in here, right down in between these roots as best I can. I don't think it's going to be ever so easy. But I'll do my best. Seems to be going in without any great problems. Not too many holes showing up. And I can get my fingers into the middle of the underside of the plant, so I can get all that lot. It was very strange that medium it was in. Very odd. The great majority is this strange, as I say, if you said it was a peat-based general purpose compost, I wouldn't have argued with it. It was very much that kind of thing, and there was some some bark in there, but there was very, very little. But it was all at the top. It was almost as if it had been top dressed to make it look like it had got a lot of bark in there, which was rather disappointing. I know these things are supposed to like to be on the damp side, which is why I've used a lot of moss, but I put a layer of the bark alone into the bottom of the pot to try and make sure this is an air cone pot, try and make sure that this is what we're going to get. And it's actually worked out quite well. I'm just hoping that because I've raised it a bit in the pot and exposed some of these roots, that they won't take amiss to it. I didn't want it as low in the pot as it was. It just did not look right to me that you've got pseudo-orchid really deeply buried in the down into the medium. So I'm just going to finish off putting in all this stuff that we've got, and I'll put the spike, the stake rather, back, and then all we can really do is keep our fingers crossed that it will pull through. There we are. So that is my Psychopsis mariposa, repotted. It certainly doesn't need watering. All the moisture in this sphagnum moss is going to keep it going for ages, which is a slight worry. It's going to have to be allowed to drain for a bit. I'll have to spray the leaves again to get rid of some of the stuff that's come on it from handling, and bits of sphagnum moss making it all look grubby. But I think on the whole I'm quite happy with that. I say, even though it's dripping, but at least that means it's draining as well. Now now that I've repotted it and I've made sure there aren't any snails, that is going to go onto one of my windowsills alongside my Psychopsis, and I'm hoping that will kick on. I suspect, lose that bud. It's quite conceivable that bud will disappear because it's been disturbed. And everything everything. Some things that you read say they don't like being disturbed, only do it if you've absolutely got to. Well, I'm afraid, as far as I'm concerned, if it's got snails, that's something that needs doing. But equally, it's put my mind at rest that the plant overall is in very good condition, and I can only hope that it will now push on. Right, okay, that's that bit.